What do you do when someone turns your entire world against you with lies you can't disprove? When your truth sounds defensive and their fiction sounds compelling? When every word you speak is used as evidence of exactly what they're accusing you of? Most people fight. Most people lose. But there's another way. And it requires you to do the one thing every instinct in your body is screaming at you not to do. Look, here's something that most people fundamentally misunderstand when they're being slandered and when their reputation is being torn apart by someone who's manipulating the narrative. You think you need to fight back immediately. You think you need to defend yourself, to explain, to justify, to make everyone understand the truth. And that's precisely the instinct that will destroy you. That's exactly what the narcissist is counting on. When you rush to defend yourself, you're actually validating the game. You're stepping onto their chessboard. You're playing by their rules. And the moment you do that, you've already lost because they've had weeks or months to prepare this battlefield while you're just discovering that war has been declared. Every word you speak in your defense can be twisted, recontextualized, used as further evidence of exactly what they're claiming about you. It's a trap, and it's a sophisticated one. The silent strategy is about something much deeper than just keeping your mouth shut. It's about understanding the fundamental nature of truth and time. Truth has a weight to it, a gravity. Lies are light, they're ephemeral. They need constant maintenance and energy to keep them floating. When you remain silent, you're not being passive. You're being strategic. You're allowing the natural order of things to reassert itself. Think about what happens when you don't react. The narcissist has to keep escalating. They have to keep creating new dramas, new stories, because the old ones aren't getting the reaction they need. And with each escalation, they reveal more of themselves. The mask slips. People start to notice the inconsistencies. They start to see the pattern. But this only happens if you're not there muddying the waters with your defensive reactions. Your silence forces other people to think for themselves. When you're not constantly in their ear explaining your side, they actually have to observe and evaluate. They have to use their own judgment. And most people, contrary to what you might fear in your darkest moments, most people have a fairly good instinct for detecting authenticity versus manipulation. But you have to give them the space to access that instinct. This requires something profound from you. It requires you to have faith in your own character, in the life you've actually lived, in the relationships you've actually built. It requires you to believe that your actions over years speak louder than someone else's words over weeks. That's not easy. That's actually one of the hardest psychological positions a human being can maintain. The silent strategy is also about preserving your energy and your dignity. Every moment you spend defending yourself is a moment you're not spending building your future, healing your wounds, investing in the people who actually matter. It's a moment where you're allowing someone else to dictate the terms of your existence, and that's no way to live. What you're really doing when you embrace strategic silence is you're betting on reality itself. You're trusting that the truth is not just a narrative, but something that exists independent of what anyone says about it. You're trusting that your actual character will eventually shine through the fog of lies. And here's the thing, it will. It almost always does. But only if you don't contaminate the process with your desperate need for immediate vindication. There's a fundamental principle that operates in the architecture of reality itself, and it's this: objective records outlast subjective narratives. Always, without exception. When someone is constructing a false reality around you, when they're painting you as the villain in a story they've carefully crafted, your instinct is to argue with the narrative. But that's the wrong battlefield entirely. You need to be operating on a completely different plane. Documentation is not about building a case for some future trial. It's about maintaining your grip on what actually happened when everyone around you is being fed an alternate version of events. It's about preserving your own sanity first and foremost. Because here's what happens when you're being gaslit on a massive scale. You start to doubt your own memory, your own perceptions, your own experiences. The human mind is malleable, and when enough people are telling you that your version of events is wrong, you begin to wonder if maybe you're the one who's confused. So you write it down, you save the emails, you screenshot the messages, You note the dates, the times, the witnesses, not frantically, not obsessively, but methodically. You're creating a parallel record of reality that exists independent of anyone's interpretation, and this serves multiple functions that are far more sophisticated than just having evidence. First, it anchors you to the truth. When you document something, you're making a commitment to what actually occurred. You're drawing a line in the sand of your own consciousness that says, this happened, this is real, this is not up for negotiation. That's psychologically stabilizing in ways that are difficult to overstate when you're surrounded by people who are accepting a completely fabricated version of events. Second, documentation reveals patterns. When you're in the middle of narcissistic abuse, each incident feels isolated, confusing, sometimes even trivial. But when you document consistently, you start to see the systematic nature of what's happening. You see the contradictions, you see the escalations, you see the manipulation tactics repeating themselves in slightly different forms. This is enormously empowering because it transforms your experience from feeling like a victim of random chaos to understanding that you're dealing with a predictable pattern of pathological behavior. Third, and this is crucial, documentation is a form of action that doesn't require you to defend yourself in the moment. It's proactive without being reactive. You're building something, constructing a foundation, while the narcissist is tearing things down. There's a dignity in that. There's a kind of quiet power in knowing that you're operating with integrity while someone else is operating with deception. The lies that others build are like houses made of cards. They're impressive sometimes, they can fool people temporarily, but they have no structural integrity. They collapse under scrutiny, under time, under the weight of their own contradictions. The truth you're documenting is different. It's made of stone. It's permanent. It doesn't need you to constantly prop it up, or revise it, or remember which version you told to which person. When the time comes, and it will come, when people start asking questions, when the narrative starts to crumble, when reality begins to reassert itself, you won't need to rely on your memory or your rhetorical skills. You'll have the receipts. You'll have the record, and that record will speak with a clarity and authority that no amount of charismatic lying can overcome. There's a law that operates in human affairs that's as reliable as gravity, and it's this: the truth has a half-life that's infinite, while lies decay exponentially. The narcissist is counting on the immediate impact, the shock value, the initial wave of sympathy and outrage they can generate. But they're fundamentally miscalculating because they don't understand the temporal dimension of reputation and character. They think reality is just a story, and whoever tells the most compelling story wins. But that's not how it works across time. What happens is this: every lie they tell, every exaggeration, every manipulation, it's like they're throwing a boomerang, and in the moment, it looks like it's flying away from them and hitting you. That's what everyone sees. That's what feels so devastating. But a boomerang doesn't travel in a straight line. It has a curved trajectory. And if you can just survive the initial impact, if you can just remain standing, that boomerang is already on its way back to the person who threw it. Time is your ally in ways that are almost mystical, because time reveals character, not what people say about character, but actual character. The narcissist has to maintain their false persona constantly. They have to keep the lies consistent. They have to manage the impressions of dozens or hundreds of people. They have to remember which version of the story they told to whom. And this is exhausting. This is unsustainable. The mask always slips eventually. Meanwhile, what are you doing? You're living your actual life. You're being consistent because you don't have to remember lies. You're treating people with genuine respect because that's who you actually are, not because you're managing an image. You're building real relationships based on authenticity rather than manipulation. And people notice this. Maybe not immediately, maybe not consciously at first, but they notice. The people who believe the lies about you, they start having their own experiences with the narcissist. And suddenly things don't quite add up. They hear a story about you that contradicts their own observations. They see the narcissist treat someone else the way they claimed you treated them. They witness the same manipulation tactics being deployed against a new target. And each of these experiences is a crack in the narrative. Each one is a small revelation. This is why patience isn't just a virtue in these situations, it's a strategy. It's not about passively waiting for vindication. It's about understanding that human beings are pattern recognition machines. We're built to detect authenticity and deception, but we need sufficient data points. We need time to observe. We need multiple interactions to see the consistent themes. The boomerang effect means that every false accusation the narcissist makes will eventually be seen in the context of all their other false accusations. Every lie will be weighed against every other lie. Every manipulation will form part of a pattern that becomes undeniable. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to do anything to make this happen. You just have to not interfere with the natural process. Your job is to remain consistent, to be the same person in private that you are in public, to treat people well regardless of whether they believe the lies about you, to build a life of genuine substance while the narcissist is building castles made of deception, because those castles will fall. They always do. It's not a question of if, but when. And when they fall, everyone will see what was always there, the truth about who you actually are and who they actually are. Here's what nobody tells you about being smeared by a narcissist. It's actually an opportunity disguised as a catastrophe. And I know how that sounds when you're in the middle of it, when your reputation is being shredded, when people you thought were friends are turning away from you. It sounds absurd. But stay with me here because there's something profound happening beneath the surface of this disaster. When a narcissist turns people against you, they're actually doing you the tremendous service of revealing who those people truly are. They're showing you which relationships were built on substance and which were built on convenience. They're exposing the fault lines in your social architecture that were always there, but that you couldn't see because everything seemed fine on the surface. This is painful information to receive, but it's invaluable. The fundamental error most people make is they spend all their energy trying to win back the people who believe the lies. They're trying to repair relationships that were never structurally sound to begin with. They're pouring water into broken vessels, and every ounce of energy spent on that defense is energy that's not being invested in building something real, something sustainable, something that actually nourishes your soul. Your exodus isn't about running away. It's about a deliberate, conscious redirection of your life force. It's about recognizing that you've been given a clean slate whether you wanted one or not, and clean slates are rare and precious things in adult life. Most people spend decades maintaining relationships and social structures that don't serve them, that don't reflect who they've become, that are based on who they were 10 years ago. You don't have that problem anymore. The narcissist burned it all down for you.